Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie, with a cup of tea. And in today's video, I'm looking at some Scottish murders because coming up is Burns Night. On Burns Night, on the 22nd of January, we are going to have fun that night. But because I'm concentrating on Scotland this week for the crimes that I'm talking about, and this particular crime is a very, very important day, or it was a very important day, when Carolyn Glachan's murderers were finally brought to justice. So on the 25th of August 1996, so 27 years ago, more or less, Caroline was 14 years old, a normal 14-year-old teenager. She liked boys. She was all excited because she was going to meet her then boyfriend, Robert O'Brien, who was actually 4 years older than her. He was 18 years old. And she was going off to meet him, not knowing that she would never come home again. So let's chat. So this case is especially important because it shows how justice, cold justice, although it's taken a long time for justice to come for Caroline and her family, it has at least arrived. So this was Caroline at 14 years old. We're going to have a look at a few other photos of her when she was little. This is Caroline when she was a little girl, bless. How heartbreaking for a mother to lose her daughter in the way that she did. It's heartbreaking to lose a child, however you lose a child, but to lose a child in the way that Caroline's mother had to lose her child, and to have to wait for so many years before she's got justice, even though she knew, everybody sort of knew who had committed this crime. And here are the three people that have been convicted of the crime. Of course, they're older now. They're not teenagers anymore. Well, they weren't they were teenagers then, sorry. So I've got O'Brien, who is now 45 years old. This is this guy, this twonk here. We've got Mr. Kelly, who's 44 years old, and Ms. Brand, who is also 44 years old. Now, these three horrible people, for some totally unknown reason, took Caroline out to the River Leav, which we're going to have a look at, the River Leav in Scotland, in Dunbartonshire, and decided to take her life and then leave her there, push her in the river basically, and leave her for dead. It's thought that she may have been unconscious when she entered the water, and they just left her there. They just left her there to drown. Just awful, awful. Revolting people. So again, that's Karen. So this is Caroline's mum at her grave. At least she, as I say, we'll be hearing from Caroline's mum later the impact that this case has had on her, that this tragedy. Imagine losing your daughter and then knowing that the people that were responsible for it were still walking free for another 27 years. Gosh, she's a better woman than I am, I'll tell you. So yeah, poor Caroline. Hopefully she can rest a bit more in peace now. Here they are again. Kelly. The woman, Ms. Brand, as they're calling her, she reputedly was also, O'Brien, this ugly, horrible twonk here, God knows what he looked like then, but if he looked anything like that, who knows what Caroline saw in him. But apparently Ms. Brand at the time was also in a relationship with O'Brien, and it's O'Brien who is thought to have actually struck the blows, if you like, with a baseball bat. But anyway, we'll look into that. Of course, it's not known exactly what happened to Caroline. Only these twonks know that inside. But I just imagine at 18, I just cannot imagine someone at 18 wanting to inflict that damage on a young girl, you know, just, and that they all stuck together and none of them said anything. And even if these two twonks weren't responsible for the actual blows, they didn't say anything. They let this man, you know, live his life now until he's 44 years old, but finally he's been given life in prison, so he will be going to prison. Well, they'll all be going to prison. So the two guys have already had their sentence of life imprisonment. I think it's a minimum of 33 years. This woman this twonkess, she's poorly. She's got a respiratory infection. So she will be sentenced later on in the year when she's better. Okay, so that's the perpetrators. That's Caroline. Let's have a look at what happened that fateful day all those years ago. All those years ago. So I'm going to share. I'm going to share a different. Let's see. So we share this window now, so I can show you. Okay, so this is the national world. Let's see if I can get through the adverts to actually. So let me tell you the story of what happened to poor Caroline. So 2 people have been jailed for life for the murder which was committed 27 years ago. Robert O'Brien, so this is O'Brien here and this is Kelly, Andrew Kelly, were found guilty of killing 14-year-old Caroline Glachan, who was O'Brien's girlfriend. God, oh dear me. In August 1996, following a trial at the High Court in Glasgow last month. Now, I can tell you that was a very hot August, and the reason I know that is I was pregnant at the time. My son was born in September that year, and it was so hot. Well, it was where I was living in Reading anyway. You know, I remember it clearly. And in Manchester, it was hot as well because I went to a family wedding and it was just unbearable. I was unbearably hot because I was so heavily pregnant. So I do remember that it was very, very hot. So that explains perhaps a bit why they went out in the night, because apparently they went out in the night to commit this crime to the river. Anyway, Donna Marie Brand, 44, was also found guilty of the schoolgirl's murder, but she was unable to be sentenced as she was in hospital, and she will be sentenced in March. So the trio had arranged for some unknown reason to meet Caroline at a bridge beside the River Lev between Renton and Bonhill in West Dunbartonshire on August the 25th, and then repeatedly punched, kicked, and threw bricks or other similar items at her, causing blunt force trauma to her head and body. For why? Who knows? She was then pushed or fell into undergrowth, and her body was discovered in the river at place of Bonhill, Renton's later that same day, which was also her mother's 40th birthday. And on Monday, O'Brien and Kelly were jailed for life when they appeared for sentencing at the High Court in Glasgow. So O'Brien, he only got, oh my God, I thought they got 30 years. So O'Brien was ordered to serve a minimum of 22 years. Oh, for God's sake, what is going on? Anyway, and Kelly was ordered to serve 18 years minimum. I will never, ever understand these sentences. Judge Lord Braid described Caroline Glachan's murder as brutal, depraved, and above all wicked. He said O'Brien was the main perpetrator and used extreme violence on the 14-year-old. The judge said that while Kelly played a lesser role, he was also involved in inflicting murderous violence on the teenager. How is that a lesser role? Come on. How is it a lesser role? They're just allowing people to murder, because people will see these sort of sentences. They don't put people off. So if he serves 22 years, he'll only be 66 when he gets out. And I know if you're young, that seems old, but when you're older, you know that that's actually still quite young. Unless he gets ill in prison or whatever. Anyway, Caroline was a lover of life, but due to both of you, Caroline has been deprived of the opportunity of living that life, becoming an adult, having children and fulfilling her potential. You've taken a daughter from a loving mother. Mrs. McKeach has spoken of the pain that Caroline's death has caused, the void her death has left that will never be filled. She has been deprived of seeing the woman that Caroline would have become. No sentence that I pass could possibly make up for what she has lost. No, but a bigger sentence could make it feel better. So that was the sentencing. I'm going to read you another news item now. So this was an item from Sky News during the trial. So there she is, Caroline. So this was on the 28th of November. This must have been when the trial was starting, or they're on trial. So a teenage girl allegedly murdered. They had to say allegedly then because it was before they was found guilty. 27 years ago, sustained at least 10 significant blows to her head, which rendered her unconscious before she entered a river. Now, I want to show you this river. It's funny because, when we see these rivers, we've looked at a lot of rivers lately, haven't we? This is the River Lev. And if we look at the photos of it, rivers always look so beautiful and calm, don't they? And then so many sort of horrible things seem to happen there in rivers, not in just this particular river. So it's near Loch Lomond by the look of it, or I've been to Loch Lomond. It's very beautiful. Yeah, rivers are very beautiful, very tranquil, but just look at that. I mean, how beautiful is that? Gorgeous photos of the River Lev in Scotland. Okay, I'll go back to where I was. I just wanted to show you the river because it is so beautiful. Anyway, so the body of 14-year-old Caroline Glachan was discovered in the River Lev near the place of Bonhill in Renton, West Dunbartonshire on the 25th of August 1996. So, prosecutors claim the three arranged to meet Caroline at a bridge on the towpath beside the river between Renton and Bonhill, where they are alleged to have assaulted her, shouted and swore, and repeatedly kicked and punched her on the head or body. What possible reason could there be for this? Obviously they've pled not guilty, so they're not even owning up to it, but what motive, how are they going to come up with a reason for this? So it's claimed they threw bricks or similar instruments, causing blunt force injuries to her head and body before pushing or causing her to fall into the river and ultimately murdering the teen. So all three defendants pled not guilty and lodged special defences of alibi. Now, I want to tell you about the alibi before we carry on. So the alibi was they were supposed to be babysitting two young boys, a baby and a 4.5-year-old boy. And they took these boys with them to do this. One of the boys, who of course is older now, so he'd be in his 30s now, who was 4.5 at the time, he actually testified as a witness from what he remembered. And I'm going to read that out to you later, his testimony. So he said it was dark when they went, so they went there at night time, and he said that he had seen a lassie get battered and fall into the river. And he said it was dark. He saw someone called Robbie, which is O'Brien's nickname, hit Caroline with a stick. Now it's thought to be a baseball bat that he hit her with. And this boy, I think his name was Alfie, but I'm not sure of that. But he said that when Caroline fell into the water, he closed his eyes. So let's remember that these twonks, not only that they did this horrible, horrible thing, they did it in front of children. So this was their alibi. They said they were babysitting at the time, but somebody had reported seeing them leave the house, which they denied. Somebody said they heard the pushchair for the baby that they were babysitting going down the stairs. Well, you can hear that when you push a trolley down with a baby in it down the steps, you can hear it clicking. So but they say no, they didn't leave the property. But the boy, the 4.5-year-old boy, actually saw this murder. Just foul people, absolutely foul people. They're worse, the worst of the worst type of people, not only to do that horrible thing to Caroline, but to have a young boy there at the time as well. Anyway, the pathologist said the ultimate cause of the teenager's death was drowning. However, it was likely she was already unconscious before she fell in the river. Do you know, I hope she was, because I hope she did. How awful, how awful. I hope she just didn't know anything once she went in the river. They just left her there to drown. She could have been saved. So they meant to murder her. They meant to murder her. They left her there to die. Her lungs showed the classical features of drowning, Dr. Turner said. In addition, she had significant injuries with a number of blunt force injuries to her head and skull, and these injuries were likely to have caused her to lose consciousness. So when she was asked, would the loss of consciousness be rapid, the pathologist replied, potentially. I mean, the thing is, very difficult, isn't it? You're giving likelihoods, but you don't know. But anyway, she said potentially, given the number of significant blows landed. I hope so. Anyway, just because that she wouldn't realise she was drowning. She was still alive when she went into the water. Drowning was the ultimate cause of death. She had an extensive fracture of the skull. She had suffered at least 10, but potentially more blows to the head, resulting in obvious blunt force injuries to the face and scalp. Given the pattern which fell from her head to her left cheek, she said it suggested it's most likely from a weapon that is long and quite narrow with a rough component to it, but it could also be from punches, kicks and stamps. Now, another person, a friend of O'Brien's, claims that O'Brien, claims that she asked him, did you hit Caroline with that baseball bat? Because he came out of the bushes or something with a baseball bat. And she says, but this is only hearsay, she says that O'Brien said, yes, I did. And he admitted to her that he had hit Caroline on the head with a baseball bat. So O'Brien's solicitor asked if the teenager was alive but unconscious on falling in the water. You know why you'd be asking that? So how these people can defend these twonks, I just don't know. But the reason he said, because he'll be trying to show that necessarily it wasn't his client that killed her. She was still alive. Yeah, he banged her over the head a few times with a fucking baseball bat. Yeah. But no, he didn't kill her because she was still alive. It was the water, that bloody horrible water, that killed her, not him. Oh, God, such twonks. Anyway, and the doctor said, yes, it's extremely unlikely she was not unconscious before she entered the water. It may also be the reason she wasn't able to get out of the water. It was likely that she sustained a minimum of 10 blows, but potentially significantly more to her head. So O'Brien also faced separate charges alleging that on various dates between the 1st of June 96 and the 25th of August 1996, he assaulted her. So he was known for assaulting her at locations including Balloch County Country Park, Renton Vale of Leven, and elsewhere in Dunbartonshire. If only she would have told someone, if only she would have told her mum. Anyway, it's alleged that he assaulted her by punching her face, placing his hands round her neck and compressing her throat. Oh, she won the lottery when she started going out with him. I mean, not only that, he's actually really pig ugly as well, and not a nice person, for God's sake. Earlier, the court heard from witness Andrew Walker, 45, who told jurors he heard a kerfuffle when he was walking home on the streets near the river. He said he heard a scream and went towards the river to see what was happening, and then he heard a further scream. Mr. Walker told the court it was like a kerfuffle, maybe. Then there was a second scream that was a bit louder. It was maybe someone trying to shout. So that's very sad because, I mean, the trouble is when people hear screams. Oh, I mean, God, I'm always hearing screams in my village. There's kids that just seem to love screaming for some reason. And sometimes you think, oh, God, should I be worried? Should I be ringing the police? But of course, when you hear them often, you don't. Maybe he was scared. People think people are messing around, don't they? But it's awful to think that she could have been saved if somebody would have, if he maybe would have investigated, or maybe not. Maybe he would have been attacked. I mean, these twonks, they were there to do some damage, weren't they? And they even had children with them. I mean, it's sort of unbelievable, isn't it, really, that they were babysitting. Anyway, we're going to have a look now at what the BBC had to say about it. So this is where the little boy gave his evidence saying he saw the girl in the water. So a 4-year-old boy told detectives he witnessed an alleged murder victim being attacked and then saw her in the water. Oh, his name's Archie, not Alfie. I knew it began with an A. So the High Court in Glasgow heard that Archie Wilson was interviewed by officers investigating the murder of Caroline Glachan. The 14-year-old's body was found in the River Lev in Renton on 25th of August 96. So the jury at the High Court in Glasgow was shown video evidence that Archie gave to 2 male police officers in September 1996. The boy told police he saw Caroline in the water and asked where he was. The child replied, down the Leven. And the court also heard it was dark and he saw someone called Robbie hit Caroline with a stick and a pole. And this little witness, Archie, said he closed his eyes when she was pushed into the water. So the court had already heard that Caroline was in a relationship with Mr. O'Brien, who was known as Robbie, and he was also seeing, I wonder if this is the crux of what happened that night, he was also seeing his co-accused, Miss Brand, at the time of the schoolgirl's death. So it was Archie's mother who told the police he had told her he saw a girl falling into the river. Betty Wilson recalled Archie also told her on the 25th of August that there had been a fight with a wee lassie. She said she had gone to her sister's house and that Mr. Kelly, now 44, and his girlfriend, Miss O'Neill, were babysitting her 2 children and stayed with them overnight. And Archie told her he was taken to the river by Mr. O'Brien, 45, co-accused Miss Brand, 44, and Miss O'Neill. Then Archie said there was a fight with a wee lassie, and she ended up falling in the Leven, and they battered the wee lassie. And Miss Wilson said that when she heard Caroline had been found in the river, she said, I realised my ween, that's child for anybody who doesn't speak Scottish, was telling the truth. She also said her son had told her the girl was wearing a chippy jumper the same as she had. And indeed, Caroline had been wearing a dark blue chippy jumper when her body was found. So Archie told her the girl was hit on the back of the head with something. She was fighting with Donna. Donna would be the other. This O'Brien, for God's sake, you must put something in these girls' drinks or something, because why were they interested in him? Anyway, both the witness and her sister at first were a little bit sceptical about Archie's account, which she would be, because you think it'd be hard to, even though you thought that your child was normally a truthful child, it'd be hard, wouldn't it, you think, what? That can't possibly have happened. But Miss Wilson said he was talking about what he'd seen while at her sister's house in front of 2 other people who called the police. Meanwhile, a witness told the trial she heard a woman shouting that wasn't meant to happen hours before Caroline's body was discovered. Linda Dorian lived above Miss Wilson's flat in the village of Renton, and between 11 and midnight on the 24th of August, she heard the voices of people leaving the flat, and she heard Miss O'Neill bumping a buggy down the steps. And she said she went to the window and told the jury, I thought it was a little bit late for her to be taking the baby, who's Jamie, the other boy, out in the buggy. And she saw Archie at the side of the buggy. And it was being pushed by Miss O'Neill and her boyfriend, Mr. Kelly, and there was a male and female in front of them. And she said that when they returned sometime after midnight, she heard Miss O'Neill shouting. She said she was not 100% sure of the words, but it was something like, that was out of order, that wasn't meant to happen. And then she said the commotion ended and it went quiet. And Miss Dorian added, I was quite frightened. I was in the house myself with my daughter. So poor Caroline, her body was discovered on the riverbank in Renton with extensive injuries to her scalp, face and neck, sustained from blunt force trauma. Okay, so they all claim that they did not leave that house. So what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at Caroline's mum talking about, the convictions. I just don't know how she's got through. I honestly don't.
Caroline's mother, Margaret, came into the Scotland Tonight studio for her only TV interview of the day. She was joined by her husband, Alan, to reflect on the long and painful wait for justice. Margaret, the killers were sentenced today, and do you get a sense that you and Caroline have had justice?
There is a sense of justice. I think a lot of people think, right, well, now it's closure, but I don't see it as closure.
Yeah, this word closure is used so much, isn't it? And there's partial closure. But closure is, you think of closure as when something finishes. It will never finish for Caroline's mum. Of course it won't. It will never, ever finish for Margaret. But it would just feel a little bit better knowing that finally justice has caught up with those twonks.
I don't think closure's the right word for today. Justice is the right word today. Closure is, I still don't have a daughter, so how can you close off on that? So I think, yeah, justice has been done today.
And Alan, you've been with Margaret the whole way. What was your feeling today?
I was happy to see them going down today for the length of time that they got. Well, it's been a long time, as you say.
And as Alan says, that's been 26 years, 27 years, I beg your pardon. So there's been that search for justice that you've had for 27 years. And you were in the court every day. Give us a sense of what that length of time was, what it was like waiting that long and then being in the court and seeing it finally.
I can't imagine that. Can you? 27 years knowing, because she lives sort of not far away, I suppose, and knowing that these twonks were walking free, living their lives, getting married, having children, all the things her daughter should have been doing. And she's had to live with that. She must be a very calm person. I think that would be very difficult to live with without actually going and, and it wouldn't be good to go. I'm not saying it would be good to go and sort of start causing trouble or whatever, but how would you be able to stop yourself? But anyway, she does explain here in a very calm and rational way, bless her, why obviously she didn't, because she didn't want to compromise any trial that might happen eventually. And she did the right thing, of course she did. But I tell you, my admiration for her, that she could do that.
Finally come to pass.
Like years, I think hope is what I had. Hope that they would catch whoever did it. Although I had a feeling, I think as most people did, as to who they were, but proving it was a different thing. But that was hard. That was knowing who probably done it, having to see them sometimes, in the passing and knowing what they'd done. It's hard. The only thing I hope I had was that they would catch them. If I didn't have hope, then I didn't have anything. So it's hard to get out of your bed and go to work and do the dishes, just normal things with that constantly there.
And just touching on that.
Yeah, just going through the motions in your normal life, all the minutiae of normal life, like, washing the dishes, putting the washer on, I don't know, cooking your meals, etc. And all the time, it's bad enough when you've had a normal bereavement, if you like, at the end of the day, through our lives, we lose people, but losing someone in this way and knowing that the perpetrators were still walking around free must have been absolute torture. Bless her.
Again, people that you think were responsible for killing your daughter, you're seeing them in the community, and you know that people in the community know that they're the killers.
Yeah.
What's that like?
It's quite a hard pill to swallow, and you don't want to see in, because you don't want to jeopardise any kind of investigation. So it's hard as a mother, never mind anything else, but particularly as a mother, to go to them and and say anything or.
Yeah, you'd be sort of wanting to get your own justice, wouldn't you, on them, which isn't right. I know it's not right. I'm just saying how you would feel as a mother that someone had done that to your child, or a father, or a brother, or a sister, anyone, or a friend, anyone that loves someone. It'd be very, very difficult not to take things into your own hands. But she did the right thing not to.
It takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of strength to go over the years and just to keep going.
Why did you stay there?
Because I had to see this through to the end.
Oh.
Caroline's not here, but I'm here, so I have to be here for her to see it through. Come with me.
And Alan, what did you have to do to support Margaret in this? What was it like for you?
It was very difficult. Very difficult.
Yes, I think Alan is not Caroline's father, from what I can gather. Maybe a stepfather, but he has supported his wife through it all. So it must have been difficult for him. God, this is what I mean. We get up in the morning, we moan about little things, but the crosses that some people have to bear are really, they just fill me with admiration. These people, that can sort of face these things and come through them, because I don't know what I would have done, to be honest, but maybe I would have done the same. Maybe I would, but until you're in that position, you just don't know, do you?
Just got to try my best to support it as we go along. as times went on, it's got harder to support her. There's lots of times when we thought, is it ever going to get solved? But since the cold case team came into the operation, that seems to be the thing that changed it.
And
Yeah, so all these years, and what happened, I think it was in 2021 or 2020, was a cold case team that decided to reopen the case. And thank God, you know, so, and things change, you know, because in that, when it first happened, people that maybe were defending these twonks, you know, maybe scared of retribution themselves, maybe just very young and silly, because you know, your outlook changes as you get older, doesn't it? You know, what you might think, oh, you know, when you're sort of 18, 19, then when you get older and you've got children yourself, maybe that's when you think, oh, you know, maybe I should speak to the police, or, you know, so things change. So these cases, it's always worth reopening them. Sometimes it's the police that reopen them if they get, you know, a chance to, or sometimes it's pressure from the family. But I think this is just proof that it's never give up. If you think, you know, obviously, if you think something's happened and you have got an idea of who's done it, because of course the other things that have changed are DNA advances. So there's a lot of cases getting solved, a lot of cold cases getting solved by DNA now. I don't think this has been one of them. I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I think this has been solved by witnesses now talking that weren't talking before. I think that's how this case has been solved.
you were in court for every day, Margaret. What was it like hearing what you were hearing?
To see the injuries to her to start, that was I knew that she had been hit in the head and such like. I mean, but to hear it and then to see the actual extent to the injuries was really quite harrowing. It was like, and to look at that and to see the injuries, and then to look in front of me and there's 3 people that were responsible, it was hard for me to keep in my chair.
And the defence lawyers?
Defence lawyers were...
Imagine, yeah, they're sat right there, the people. So you're looking at all these injuries that have been perpetrated on your 14-year-old daughter, and those people who did it are right there in front of you. It'd be very difficult, wouldn't it, to keep your hands to yourself?
Robbie O'Brien's lawyer in particular was quite... obviously he's doing his job. He's got to defend his and I'm quite understanding of that. But from a mother's point of view, for me to sit there and listen to him, you know, give her a character assassination and not be able to defend her, that was hard.
Tell us about Caroline. What was she like?
Oh, character assassination of Caroline, the dead girl who can't speak up for herself. Honestly, I'm sorry. I know he's doing his job, the guy. I know that these twonks have to be defended. I understand, like she says, but I couldn't do that. How does he go home at night and sleep knowing that he's just character assassinated a dead 14-year-old girl that can't stand up for herself? And even at the end of the day, it wouldn't matter if she was the biggest bitch in history. She didn't deserve being whacked over the head and left to drown in a river. So why do it? It's like so painful. That must have been so painful for a mum, and nobody's there to speak for her.
Oh, she was 14. She wasn't an angel. She, like any teenagers, they don't come in when they're supposed to come in. They go to places they're not supposed to go. They're with people that you'd rather they weren't with. But that is part of growing up. That is part of learning. But she was a kid.
Yeah, typical. It's horrible. I mean, I did it, I know, and then I had to, you know, go through it with my son. And I tell you what, any of you out there who've got children and you think it's difficult, but they've not arrived at being a teenager, and you think your child would never do that, or your child would never say that, or never mix with those kind of people, you're in for a big shock, because you don't know you have no idea what might happen to your child when they become a teenager. It really is like them being lifted up, and replaced with a completely different person. I just can't explain what it's like. Anyone who has been through it with their children will understand what it's like. And also, it's made me feel guilty about how I was. And I wasn't that bad of a teenager, really, or I didn't think I was. But sometimes I look back now and I think about some of the things I did, things that she's talking about. I'd go out and I wouldn't come home, because we didn't have mobile phones in those days. So just wouldn't come home, and then I'd arrive home in the morning and my mum and dad would be at the gate, like terrified, wondering whether they should ring the police. And I'd just think, oh, what are you going on about? Just things like that. Or like she says, mixing with people you're not supposed to be mixing with, always trying to, when you're underage, trying to get in the pub, trying to get in the club, things, taking lifts off people. I've done some stupid things when I was a teenager. So, and I think really there's not many teenagers don't do anything wrong. So, it's not easy. So, yeah, Caroline will not have been an angel. Like she said, of course she won't have been an angel. Who is? But to give her a character assassination, as if anything that they could say would mean that she deserved being battered over the head and left to drown in a river, is disgusting.
Person, very loyal person, and if she thought that you were her friend, then you had Caroline's loyalty to the end. Very family orientated. I mean, when she was out and about with her friends, she would often stop in at my mum's, ask how she is, make her a cup of tea, and then go out with her friends. So that's the kind of person that she was. Know what they were portraying her to be in.
And Alan, you were only in Caroline's life for a year. What sort of girl do you remember?
A very fun, happy, go-lucky girl. Yeah, I liked her pretty much from the very start. She's full of life, Basically, that was it.
And she was a very, obviously a much loved daughter, but a much sought-after daughter, because she had a tough start to life.
She did, yeah. She was 2 pounds, some ounces, and then obviously she lost a bit of weight, as most babies do.
Oh, she was only 2 pounds and a few ounces when she was born, bless.
So she was £1.4
Oh.
So it was quite
a pound
to get her past that. I mean, she was quite a healthy kid. Looking at her, you wouldn't think that she had such a rocky start like that. But she was just a love of her life. She always had somewhere to go and somebody to see, that kind of quite noisy, and that's what I miss. Because for all she was very slight built, you knew she was in the house.
But she was your only child.
She was my only child.
And you'd had other disappointments.
I had other disappointments.
So it was her only child as well.
I had actually a wee boy buried in Catterick that was stillborn, and then I had lost another, others at various stages in pregnancy, all in like 5. So Caroline was the 6th sort of attempt.
Oh my God, this poor woman, and poor woman. So she's lost all those children. Then finally she has Caroline, and those twonks do what they did to her.
And that was, that would have been my last attempt. I know, like when I'd lost them, I'd say, right, that's it, I'm never trying again. But once you go over that, you think, right, okay. Oh. But this time I knew that it was the last time, and I got her,
And had Caroline grown up, she would have been 42 last week. You feel you missed out on everything.
I mean, they've took Caroline as a body, but they have took away such a great deal from me. Not just Caroline's body. They've took away. I'll never be a grandmother. I'll not see her walking down the aisle. All these things that I go to other folks' children's weddings and christenings. And so there's always that reminder that these are things that I'm never going to have. And that's what they've took.
They need to start taking these sort of things into account, because, yes, she'll never have grandchildren. She'll never see her daughter get married. And probably the grandchildren is a big thing. So not only she's lost Caroline because she's got no other children, so she would never have grandchildren. And it took her so long to actually get Caroline. Bless her.
Do you feel this was the result of a re-investigation? Do you feel the original inquiry was flawed? Should have done more?
I don't think it was necessarily flawed. I just think they could only deal with what they had at the time. As far as forensics and things, I mean, she was in the water. So that was a... And then there was people that were coming forward now with a new investigation that weren't at the time. And that was due...
Yeah, I think this is key. It just shows you, people change over time. There'll be people who wouldn't have wanted to say anything at the time for various reasons. As I say, maybe because they were just too young and they didn't think it was really that important. People that were scared maybe of the other people. Then as time goes on, things change. And, if someone who's 18, sort of 27 years later, when they've got their own children and their own grandchildren, and start to think that, well, they'd want someone to speak up for them, things change. So the police have done well to reopen this inquiry.
Due to their chaotic lifestyle, their drug habits, and mainly fear factor. There was fear in the renting at the time, and everybody was told to keep their mouth shut, So if you're 16, 17, 18, you're scared.
Yeah.
How do you think of Caroline now? You spoke previously about you dreamt about her a lot. Is that still the same?
To me, she's still 14. Because I can't see past her at 14. I mean, she is 14. She thought she was 34, but she was 14.
I bet she did. I remember
such a quirky person,
And forever 14 as far as
forever 14, yeah.
Well, Margaret and Alan, thank you both for sharing your stories with us in Scotland tonight. Really appreciate you coming to join us. Thank you.
Okay, so that is the sad story of Caroline. Very sad, but I think the moral, I always like to look for something positive, is that justice, although eventually it came cold for Caroline and her mum, it did come. It did come. So let's have just one last look at these twonks. So these are the three that will be serving a life sentence. Well, it doesn't look like life's been very kind to them. They don't look brilliant, do they? So he looks like he's on his way out already. I mean, they're only in their 40s. What they're going to look like when they're in the 60s? In another 20 years, my God. Yeah, horrible, horrible people. Doesn't look like life's been, God, what a tosser. How you could live with that, I don't know. And there you go. So there's a mum at her grave again when she was a little girl. She looks really cheeky, actually. So there you go. So I hope you're resting more in peace now, Caroline. At least you're, at least there's been some justice served. Justice served cold is just as good as any justice. And yeah, rest in peace. And I hope your mum, Margaret, I hope for her she gets some sort of comfort from this. And my heart goes out to her. Okay, so that's it. So thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please maybe think about subscribing. I want to thank everyone who's already a subscriber, everyone who supports my channel in any way, in memberships. Thank you to all my members. Thank you to anyone who sent me bought me a Ko-fi or sent me a super. I appreciate everything, anything that you have done to support my channel. Joining in my live chats or not joining in my live chats, just watching is enough. And all of you that send me emails suggesting cases, etc., thank you. So remember to live and love wisely and carefully. And you know, it's so difficult at that age to love carefully. Unfortunately, we all make mistakes with our first loves, or many of us do. Not everybody does. Sometimes people get lucky with their first loves, but a lot of people don't. But unfortunately, Caroline got very unlucky. And of course, that's because he's a lot old. He was 4 years older than her, which 4 years is not a lot, is it? 4 years between 30 and 34 is not a lot, but 4 years between 14 and 18 is a lot, and he just was a complete twonk. I hope he has, I shouldn't say this, but I really do hope he has an awful time in prison, because he needs to suffer. He's been lucky that he's been out walking around for 27 years. All of them, that they've been out and about walking around for 27 years, living their lives after they denied Caroline her life. So now it's their time to get there. It's time for justice for them. So yeah, be careful, look after you, treat yourself. You should do something at least once a week, if not every day, to pamper yourself, to make you feel good, because until you feel good, you can't make other people feel good. So until I see you again very soon in the next video, may your God go with you. Bye.